Okay, so this is the map. Now let's see the last one, that is the reduce. Now there's a little bit of extra work here that's needed to, or extra attention. Now reducing or summarizing just takes the data set and generate one value that is the aggregation, a form of aggregation, like a summation, for example. Okay, now how would you do that? How would you create that? So I want to explain this like manually, like this on the board, because it's a little bit tricky. So let's say we have a list of numbers, okay? List of numbers. So the numbers that we wanna reduce are like this: 5, 4, 3, 10, 15. Now we know this kind of functions work in a loop, and every iteration in a loop, it works, it applies something on one item, right? Now, how can you create a reduce function based on that? Okay, so the reducer, or the function that would create the aggregation, actually takes two arguments. Okay, first and second. All right, and then apply the aggregation on these two items and return results only on the two items, 2 by 2. Okay, so let's say our reducer here just adds. We just want to create the summation. So our reducer here just adds returns first plus second. Okay, so this is the function that we apply on every iteration. Okay, so in order to start, we either have to start with the first and second elements, and then we keep shifting like this, or we start with something initial that is outside of the list. Okay, so our loop actually works like this. First is given, okay, so let's say first would be equal to initial, and second would be equal to the first value in the list so far. So where's the initial? We can send it as another argument to the reduce function. Okay, so typically we send the 0 when we are trying to sum. So the initial variable initially was 0, so the first initially was 0. So at the first iteration, we have first equal to 0, second equal to the first element in the list. Now send first and second to the function. What returns is 5. So where does the 5 go? It goes as the first in the second iteration. So in the second iteration, the result of applying reduce goes to the first and the second iteration. So in the second iteration, first would be 5, and second would be equal to the next element in the list, which is here 4. Okay? So we send 5 and 4 as first and second to that reducer, and then it would return 5 plus 4, which is 9, right? So where does the 9 go? It would be the first in the next iteration. So now the next iteration is the result of reducing the previous 2. Okay? Now what would be the second here? So in the next iteration, the second will be the next element in the list. Okay? So we send D to the reducer, and then the result in the next iteration, first will be the result of that operation, and second will be the next element in the list, and so on. Yes? Yeah, it will be the same, yes. Because like the summation is very obvious thing that we take a very trivial operation to explain the concept. Okay, so not every reducer would be that simple as this one. Okay. All right, so if I'm gonna draw it in a different way, this is our list, and optionally we start with an initial value outside of the list. So let's say we start with that option. So the reduce function applies on 2 by 2. Okay, so apply on the first and the initial, and then calculate the result. All right, the result would be 5. And then in the next iteration, we would apply on the result of the previous 2 and the next value. So it would be 4 plus 5. The result would be 9. So that would be the first value that would go in the next iteration with the next value. So it would be 3 plus 9, 12. And then we take this as the first argument and apply the reducer with the 10. So the result would be 22. Okay? And then send the 22 to the reducer with the last argument here, and then the result would be 35. So the total here would be 35. That's the end. Right? Is it what? 15, 20, 37. All right, so that would be the result. Now, what if we didn't send an initial? We didn't start here. We didn't have an extra value to be the initial value. Then it would automatically take the first value in the list as your first value. As the initial. And the loop actually starts here. So this will be outside of the loop and will be taken as the initial. And the loop actually starts with the second element. So we add 5 to 4, which is 9. Now 9 goes to the next iteration with 3, which is 12, and so on. All right, so we just start the loop one step off. Okay, so if we send an initial to the reduce function, the loop would start as the first element. If we didn't send an initial to the reduce function, the loop would start in the second element, and the first element would be set as the initial. Okay, now let's try to implement this.